So now, this is where chapter 31 comes in. This is part, we're going to talk a little bit about angiosperm plant structures and parts. And so, first of all, we said that there are leaves and there's stems and there's roots. So we'll start from the bottom and go up. And so there are roots. Roots are underground structures that absorb water and solutes from the ground, such as minerals and nutrients. And then they take that water and stuff and move it up through the stem to the leaves. There are two types of root systems. There's taproot systems, and these are where you have one major root and then little roots coming off of it, but it goes down really deep into the soil and allows for the taproot to go down to the water table. And the water table is an area in the soil where it's mostly wet all the time, and it allows the tree or plant to get to a fresh source of water all the time, even in drought conditions. So that's a taproot system. A good example of this is a carrot, right? Carrots, dandelions. If you tried to pull a dandelion out of the ground, mostly you just get the top of it. You don't get the whole root because it's a deep taproot system. The other type is called a fibrous root system, and this is where it's a shallow system that has many radiating little rootlets going all over the place that irradiate from the base of the plant. And things like grass. Anybody try to pull up fescue, you can't do it because it's just got this network of these smaller roots that just radiate all over and hold it in place very well. That's why it is planted, to help keep soil erosion from occurring, because it keeps the soil in one place. If you like I said, if you try to pull up grass, you can't really pull the roots up. You just pull up the leaves. Fibrous root systems, though, if there's a drought condition, can't reach the water table, so they tend to dry up or die. That's what happens to your grass when drought occurs. So here's some examples of taproot systems. There's a tree, that's a poplar, and you can see it has a deep taproot system. Carrots, beets, or radishes are another type of taproot system. And then you have this fibrous root system over here from the grass. So we talked about roots, and now we're going to talk about stems. Stems are the major above ground structures in vascular plants. They contain vessels that transport water and minerals and nutrients in one direction, and then they also will transport the food, the glucose that's produced through photosynthesis, back in the other direction toward the roots. Externally, there are several structures in the stem structure. There are nodes. Nodes are the areas where the leaf is attached to the stem. All right. The places between these leaf attachment areas are called internodes. And lenticels are little pores in the stem that allow for gas exchange. And then at the end of the stem, there is a bud called the terminal bud, and this is where the major growth of the stem occurs. So, in the drawing here, you can see these terminal buds right here. That's where the major growth is going to occur. And these areas where leaves are attached are going to be called nodes. And then the spaces between those nodes, those are called the internodes. These little holes here are the lenticels, And you can see this little scar here, this little scar here. Those represent a year's worth of growth. So from here to here is 1 year worth of growth on the stem. Internally, these stems have two different types of vessels. This is the vascular tissue we talked about. And the xylem carries water throughout the plant. All right. So the water is, and minerals and nutrients are carried by the xylem. And then the phloem are the vessels that carry the food throughout the plant. So xylem usually takes water from the roots to the leaves for photosynthesis, and then phloem takes the food from photosynthesis down to the roots for storage. Also, some of that is also taken to areas for use of growth and things like that. So xylem carries water, phloem carries food. And those are the vascular tissue. Leaves are the plant structures that catch the sunlight. That's where photosynthesis occurs. And so they're usually flattened and green because of chlorophyll. And there are two major types of leaves. All right, the two types of leaves are simple and compound. Now, a simple leaf is just one blade. It's not broken into several different little leaflets. A compound leaf is a leaf that's broken down into several leaflets. And there are two types of leaves that are compound. There's pinnately compound, and that is where you have a leaf that's broken into several major areas of connection for the leaflets. So there's 3 connections for the leaflets to occur in this particular pinnately compound leaf. Over here is a palmately compound leaf, and that is where you have leaflets are attached at one particular spot. So only one point of a connection between the leaflets. So you can think of palmately compound as like your hand, and your palm, the bottom of your palm is connected to the fingers, and they're all connected at the bottom of your palm. So that's like palmately compound. A simple leaf is just one leaf blade. All right. To tell where a leaf starts and where it begins, this is not a leaf. The whole thing is the leaf. The leaf, there's usually a bud down here at the bottom that will tell you where the leaf starts. You will, if you have children, be asked by your child, "Oh yeah, Mom and Dad, I need help with a leaf collection. It's due on Monday." And you know when Monday is? Tomorrow, because today is Sunday. So inevitably, you will have to go out and find some leaves, and some of these terms might be used to help you identify what leaf you're looking at. So here is a simple leaf, right? And then the pinnately compound leaf, here's where the leaf starts. There's 1, 2, 3 places of attachment for the leaflet, so that's pinnately compound. And then here's the palmately compound leaf, and this is the only palmately compound leaf tree in Kentucky, and you can see all the leaflets attached at one spot, and that is the buckeye. So if you find one of those leaves, that's easy to identify that particular tree. Now leaves have different types of veins, right, that run through them. Pinnately venation, and we use the term pinnate and palmate again to describe these. Pinnate venation is where you have a major vein running through the middle of the leaf called the midrib, and then other little ribs coming up, veins coming off of that one. That one. Palmately veined is where you have several larger veins coming off the bottom of the leaf, just like we talked about palmately compound coming off your base of your hand. Just envision veins running to your fingers, and they're all connected at the base of your hand. And so that's what palmate venation looks like. And so here we go again with the same picture of the elm leaf, and you can see the major midrib running right down the middle of the leaf, and then other veins running off of it. Whereas the sugar maple, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 major veins that are coming off the bottom of the at the base of the leaf, and so that is called palmate venation. So that's leaf type and leaf venation type. And the last thing we're going to talk about are flowers. All right, angiosperms are flowering plants, and the next time your significant other gives you flowers, you can talk to them about the different parts of the flower. All right, and so at the base of the flower is called a peduncle. That's an awesome word, isn't it? Peduncle. Peduncle is where the flower sort of sits on the stem. And so we have in our picture here, right? We have a peduncle, right? Peduncle. Then usually flowers are arranged in like rows of things, all right? So the next row is called the sepal. So there's a row of little things that look like leaves in most flowers. Sometimes they look like petals, but this is called a sepal. And so here in this drawing, these lower, smaller things are going to be the sepals. All right. Petals are large, showy, colorful parts of the flower that attract pollinators. All right, and so in most flowers, the petals are large and very showy and colorful. Now, there are also in most flowers male and female reproductive organs. Right, and so we'll talk about the female reproductive system first. The whole structure is called the pistil, P-I-S-T-I-L, not pistol like boing, 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 boom, 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 all right? But pistil as in P-I-S-T-I-L, okay, that's the female reproductive structure or organ. And it's composed of 3 parts. At the base of it is an ovary. Then there's a tube that holds that comes from the ovary up and holds this little thing at the top called a stigma, and that's where the pollinators will actually drop their pollen onto the stigma. So in this drawing, we have the pistil is this whole structure in the middle, right? And at the top is the stigma. It's sort of like Velcro, and it helps catch pollen that is attached to the pollinator. And then this structure is the style, and at the base of the style is the ovary, and that's where the seeds will develop, and when that ripens, of course, it's a fruit, right? And so that's the female structure, the pistil, right? The male structure is called the stamen, right? And it's composed of 2 different parts. It has a long thing called a filament, and at the end, the structure that actually makes the pollen is called the anther. So here's our picture again. We have these long structures. These are the stamen, right? And then we have the anther. That's the thing at the top that makes the pollen, and then the long structure that holds that that anther up where the pollinators are is called the filament. Together they make the stamen. And so we again have a drawing that depicts these structures. We have the peduncle, all right, and we have sepals and petals, right? And then we have the pistil, which has the stigma, the style, and the ovary, right? That's the pistil. And then over here we have a filament and an anther, and they together make the stamen, which is the male reproductive organ. Now, what I'm going to do is I have an actual flower that we're going to look at real quick. And this is a lily. Now lilies, one thing about the lilies is their sepals are very much like the petals, all right? And so if we look at this flower, here's the peduncle, all right? The thing where the flower sits on. And then the first ring here, this one, this one, and this one are called the sepals, all right? A better example of what sepals most of the time look like would be a rosebud. You know, those little green things that hold the bud closed, those are the sepals. In lilies, of course, the sepals look like the petals, right? So then the next row of things are the petals, and we have 1, 2, and 3 of those, right? So now we have these other structures left over, all right? Now, this structure where you have a long thing with the dark structure at the top, that's the stamen, that's a stamen, and the anther is the brown thing at the top, and the long tube is the filament. And that allows for the pollen to be up here where the pollinators are going to be. So we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right. The thing about lilies is they're monocots. All right, that's a monocotyledons. All right, and that they usually have flower parts in 3s or multiples of 3. So we had 3 sepals, we had 3 petals, and we had 6 stamen. All right. So now we have the pistil. That's the last thing left. All right. And here you can see the ovary, that long tube there, a little bit larger than the style. Right. If you look at the end of the stigma, there are actually 3 lobes. So it's again multiples of 3, and so the whole thing together is the pistil. Okay. Now, that concludes chapter 17 part of the plants. There is one more video that will discuss the last part of chapter 17, which is kingdom fungi.